you can now escape from the self deity like reality.
Yes. Deity.
Yeah. Well, it's an actual experience that people have to go through where they kind of come to realize, like, I mean, in the most basic form, that they share a reality and experience.
Mm.
Dude, this guy do be South Korean though. He just pulled his queen straight out.
He's a bold man.
This is what 746 looks like.
Oh, it's just moving pieces. He's from South Korea. I don't know what that means in any sense of might have some different strategies, but he's trying to set you up to take your king straight away.
No, yeah, they all seem to do this at this level. Um, um,
Interesting.
uh, what I wanna, what I really wanna do is this.
Pointing out to E2 and then take the.
Mm,
Bishop. We move queen to next to their queen. No, it's no longer working because it's blocked back. But the move before worked. It would have been check. It was either move the king or take the queen, and you take their queen. But no.
hmm. That's a great idea. No ifs, no buts, no coconuts. That was a mistake. Oh well. Versus nerd again. Bring it on. I hate everything he did. Oh man, that attack's so boring. Knowing that I'd already moved my knight though, so I couldn't just contest it by moving it up there. It's funny how commonplace that attack is. Enthusiast. He's going down this time. He will not survive. Flukes alone won him last game. Will not happen again, my friends. Mayan friends. Get checkmated. Dude, he wants to go again. Dude, bring it on. Dude, what? What even? He's allowed me perfect structure. Uh, hmm. If I go here, the pawn can take me. And then I can take the pawn. And then threaten both rooks. I don't mind. I don't mind. I want to get this guy out anyway. Oh, he could just take it. But then I still get a rook. Either way, I get a rook. For my troubles. What do you just take? Just a pawn. Um... Hmm. Um... Dude, take that pawn. Oh, that was terrible. So bad. I had perfect structure and I wrecked it. Hmm. Still 10 ahead. Because he's got my rook. I don't like losing to this guy. Um, eh. Losing to this man. Oof. Hmm. What do we want to do? I just have no idea what he's gonna do next. And apparently neither do they. Um. Um. Not what I wanted to do. Not what I wanted to do. He's ahead, so he can trade. But he won't. You can't fork me. You would have made a mistake. getting brutalized over and over again. Mm, son. Annoying. Okay. Oh, oh, I go there. Takes me. I can take him. I can take me. He does nothing. I can take his coin, but then he can take my thing. Then I can flip. Then he can take me. It's ultimately his best move. He can take me. I can take him. He can take me. Right now, what can happen? He can take my pawn. No! Damn it. Ah, damn it. Alright, one more. I was an idiot. So many freaking losses. Fuck the Italian game. Bring it on, you little coward. I have played the tutorials. You will not beat me. Ugh. No. Like, it's a nice three-way fork, but no. I didn't need to lose my queen for the three-way fork though. Did I? Did I? Dude, he resigned. Dude, let's finish on a win. Oh, that was hectic. So hectic. So many losses. So many bad moves. But I think we're learning. We'll get there. And that'll do it. Actually, let's just stop and then come back. We'll come back and play some of the lessons soon. All right. See you soon.
matter what we said last night, trying to keep it all in line when nothing's really going right. What if I believe I can always find a way? Not afraid to be real, it's all here. What if I don't leave when I just wanna hide away? Take control of the wheel, I'm right here. Watch me fall and rise again, go party till the end. As I stand unaffected, I'm ready to rage. Feel it rushing through my veins, the force you can't command. Staying calm and collected, I am unafraid. Never felt like looking back, 'cause I was in over my head. Every time I'm losing track, I choose a different road instead. What if I believe I can always find a way? Not afraid to be real, it's all here. What if I don't leave when I just wanna hide away? Take control of the wheel, I'm right here. Watch me fall and rise again, go party till the end. As I stand unaffected, I'm ready to rage. Feel it rushing through my veins, the force you can't command. Staying calm and collected, I am unafraid.
Knowing the rules of chess is just the beginning. Chess is an incredibly deep game that you can spend a lifetime learning. So let's get started. Once you make your first move on the chessboard, you have entered what is called the opening phase of the game. This is where you begin to develop your pieces onto good squares where they can attack, defend, and control the center. Once most pieces have developed, the game enters the middle game phase, where both players are making plans, organizing their pieces, finding weaknesses, and attacking their opponent's king. Some games end right in the middle game with checkmate or resignation. Like in this position, after queen e4, white creates a battery with the queen and bishop on the b1 to h7 diagonal, threatening checkmate. Notice the queen is also threatening the unprotected rook on a8. Black only notices the unprotected rook, moves it to safety, and then is shocked to see the game is over. Queen takes h7, checkmate. Not all games end that quickly. Some games continue on, and after many of the pieces have been traded away, enter the endgame phase, where the goal is usually to promote a pawn to a queen and then checkmate your opponent. In these lessons, you will learn about each of these phases of the game in detail so you can improve your chances of winning. But before we get too far, it's time to talk about your first moves in the opening. There are three main goals in the opening. First is to establish control of the center. The center is the most important part of the board. From the center, you can launch an attack anywhere. Second is to get your pieces onto active squares. They don't have many options when they're stuck on the back rank where they start, so bringing them into the game toward the center is a good idea. Third is to get your king to safety by castling, so the king is not exposed to the dangers of the battle in the center. All of your opening moves should support these goals. Now it's your turn to practice making great opening moves.
Okay, let's do it. And one to move, can you move a pawn directly into the center? I feel like this is like going backwards. Got it, e4 moves a pawn directly into the center. After black gains its space in the center, you can start developing pieces. Excellent. Might develop the knight. Black just moved the bishop to e7. No, it didn't. Square. Can you take advantage of this tame move and immediately win a pawn? Oh. Yeah. Great job. Black's pawn on e5 is under attack from the white knight on f3. Can you develop a knight towards the center and protect the e5 pawn? Yes, I can. White wants to move the bishop on f1 and prepare to castle. Can you move the bishop to an open diagonal to control the center? Excellent. The bishop's development to an open diagonal that controls the center and points at black's weak f7 pawn. Ready. White is ready to castle after black develops the bishop. Excellent. Square. Can you castle white's king to safety? Nice. Black's knight on f6 is attacking the e4 pawn. Oh, that one. Into the game. Can you bring a knight into that game that hasn't already moved to protect? Yes. Yes. White wants to move a pawn to protect the e4 pawn and open up a diagonal for the bishop on c1. Excellent. This move protects the e4 pawn and opens up the c1 h6 diagonal for the white bishop to enter the game. Can you develop the c1 bishop to a square that attacks the black knight? Fantastic. I can't get to that position all the time.
Some people with a little experience in chess may have heard of the famous 4-move checkmate. For a beginner, this can sound both exciting and scary. Who wouldn't want to win in 4 moves? And of course, nobody wants to lose in 4 moves. Luckily, the 4-move checkmate is only dangerous in name. If you know what you're doing, that is. The 4-move checkmate is a fast attack that develops some pieces very quickly toward the center and the enemy king. White typically opens the game with e4, controlling the center and opening lines for the light square bishop and queen. Black responds with e5, controlling the center and opening up lines. And after bishop to c4, white quickly brings the bishop to an active diagonal, controlling the center and pointing at the weak f7 square. Notice the f7 square is only protected by black's king. Black typically plays knight to c6, making a sensible developing move, or sometimes will play bishop to c5. In either case, white has the option of the aggressive queen to h5, joining the bishop in the attack against the key f7 square. If black isn't careful, white will deliver checkmate on the very next move. Knight f6 is a very common mistake. Black moves the knight toward the center and threatens to win the queen. What could possibly be wrong with this move? Unfortunately, it forces the white queen to move exactly where it wanted to go, the f7 square, and deliver checkmate. You'll notice that the black king has nowhere to run. Black also can't block the check as the queen is literally touching the king. Notice black has no piece to capture the queen, and the king cannot capture the queen, because then the light square bishop would capture the king, and that's not allowed. This is the 4-move checkmate. Now let's go back and see how black could have avoided this unfortunate end to the game. After the moves e4, e5, bishop c4, knight c6, and queen h5, black must block the f7 square. The best way to do this is by playing g6. It attacks the queen, and it prevents the queen from capturing f7. White retreats the queen, but don't celebrate too early. The white queen refocuses its attack on the f7 square, threatening checkmate on the very next turn. Black can once again block the queen's path to the f7 square and develop a piece at the same time with knight f6. Notice if white tried to capture the knight, black would recapture and win the queen. At this point, black is safe and white has wasted some time running around with the queen. Finally, we have one more aggressive idea to be prepared for when our opponent tries to win the game with the 4-move checkmate. After e4, e5, white does not have to play bishop to c4 on the next turn. White could play the more aggressive queen h5. White threatens the weakened f7 square and threatens to win the e5 pawn with check. Remember, it's very important to defend the e5 pawn first, and only then block the queen's attack on the f7 square. The best move for black is knight c6, developing a piece toward the center and protecting the e5 pawn. After bishop to c4, white's bishop joins the attack on the f7 square. Do you remember how black can best block the f7 square and attack the queen? That's right, g6. White sets up another checkmate with queen f3, threatening to take on f7. Do you remember how to block the second checkmate attack? That's right, knight to f6. Now that you've learned what the 4-move checkmate is, it's time to see what you've learned.
Do it. White's queen rushes into action, attacking black's pawn on e5. Can you develop a knight towards the center to protect the pawn? White moved the bishop to c4, joining the queen's attack on f7. How can black attack the white queen and block the queen from capturing the f7 pawn? Correct. Fantastic. White moves the queen to safety, but also does the thing, so you move the thing to the thing. Great job. Can you develop a knight towards the center and protect the e5 pawn? Yes, I can. Wee. Can you develop a knight towards the center and threaten to capture white's e4 pawn? Oh, try again. Oh, there you go. Great job. The knight develops towards the center and threatens the unprotected pawn on e4. White carelessly brings out the queen, dreaming of the checkmate on f7. Can you find attack's best defense? Yes, I can. Great job. Next lesson.
In the 4-move checkmate lesson, we learned a new concept where black was checkmated by the white queen, and black couldn't capture the queen with the king because the queen was protected by the bishop on c4, like this. A king can never put itself in check, even when capturing. So many times when you checkmate, it's done by one piece who is checking, and one piece that is protecting and assisting the other piece. Let's see some examples of assisted checkmates. In this position, white can deliver checkmate by using the queen to put the king in check with the assistance of the pawn protecting the queen. Can you see the mate in 1? If you found queen g7 checkmate, great job. The queen attacks the king, and the king cannot escape the check because the queen covers all of the king's escape squares and the pawn protects the queen, meaning the black king cannot capture the queen. It's checkmate. Game over. Let's look at another example. In this position, black's king does not have any legal squares. Notice that both the white knight and queen join together on the g8 square, right next to the king. White can deliver a check with the queen that is assisted by the knight on e7 with queen g8, checkmate. Now that you've learned how pieces assist each other in delivering checkmate, it's your turn to practice assisted checkmates.
Can you combine the forces of the queen and the bishop to deliver checkmate in one move? Great job. Can you combine the powers of the rook and the knight to deliver checkmate in just the next move? Correct. Black is threatening to take queen takes g2, checkmate on the next move, but it is white to play. Can you checkmate black's king before it's too late? Yes. Black's queen is ready to end the game with queen g2, checkmate. With white to move, can you find a clever more moves that checkmate black's king? White to move. Black's queen is ready to end the game. A clever move. I'm honestly... yeah.
There you go.
In danger, but it is white to move. Can you find the winning move? Wee wee.
It's very rare to checkmate with just one piece. It usually requires several pieces to surround and finally checkmate the king. One of the most important examples of this is checkmating with 2 rooks, sometimes called the rook roller. Let's see how this works. In this position, notice the rook on c2 controls the entire c-file. This means that the black king cannot enter the c-file as long as the rook is on that file. Rook d1 checks the king on the d-file, and since the king can't enter the c-file, black's king is forced to move closer to the edge of the board. Now that the d-file is covered by the rook on d1, let's use the other rook to check the king on the e-file. Rook e2 check. Notice that the rooks take turns checking the king, cutting the black king off one file at a time. Let's watch the rook rollers roll the king up onto the edge of the board and deliver checkmate. After king f7, we bring the other rook to the f-file, checking the king. The king moves to the g-file. Now that the f-file is covered, we play rook to g2 check. The king is forced to the edge of the board and has run out of files. It's checkmate on the next move with rook h1, checkmate. The rook roller doesn't only work on files, it also works on ranks. Notice the rook on h4 covers the entire 4th rank. So in this case, we use the other rook to check the king on the 5th rank. And since the 4th rank and 5th rank are now covered by the rooks, the king gets rolled up the board again. King c6, rook h6 check, king to d7, rook to g7 check, and after king e8, rook h8, checkmate. Now that you've learned how to checkmate with 2 rooks against the king, it's your turn to practice checkmating with the rook rollers.
Use the rook roller to checkmate the king. Now that we have a vertical rook roller, find the checkmate in 1 move. How can you force black's king to the back rank in the next move? Nice. Black is ready to promote the b2 pawn into a queen on the next move. Can you force black's king to the back rank and save the game with a rook roller checkmate? Oh no, I even asked for the move. Huh. Whoops. Whoops. Nice. We did it. White king is under attack by the black queen and rook, but white's rook can force black's king into the corner. Can you find the move? Fantastic, black's king is forced into the corner. Can you find the winning move for white? Yes, I can. Next.
Even the powerful queen cannot checkmate the king all by itself. Many times you will find yourself with just your king and queen against the other king, and you need to know how to finish the job. It can be pretty frustrating unless you know what you're doing. Let's see how it works. In this position, we can use an assisted checkmate idea to win the game in just one move. Notice that the white king and queen both meet on the g7 square, right next to the black king. The queen can move to that square, checking the black king, and since the white queen is protected by its own king, the game is checkmate. Delivering a checkmate in the corner of the board is nice, but how do we force the king to the corner and set up checkmate? Let's take a look. In this position, black's king is on the central square d5. In order to checkmate the king, it must be forced to the edge of the board. Notice that the black king can move to any of the other central squares on the next turn, d4, e4, or e5. White's first goal is to prevent the king from staying in the center of the board and pushing it toward the corners. Queen to e3 prevents the king from staying in the center so the king must move toward the corners. After king d6, white's next job is to prevent the black king from returning to the center. Queen to e4. Notice the queen is keeping the king out of the center, and it's slowly pushing the black king toward the corner. You'll also see that white's queen is always one knight move distance away from the black king. We'll see the white queen continue to shadow the king a knight's distance away for the rest of the game. Black plays king c5, still trying to stay near the center, and white plays queen d3. After king c6, queen d4. Notice black moves up a square, white's queen moves up a square. The black king moves down a diagonal square, the queen moves down a diagonal square. The king moves up, the queen moves up. Notice always a knight's distance away. After king a7, the king goes up a diagonal square, the white queen goes up a diagonal square as well. Now comes the most important part of this position. After king a8, should the white queen continue to shadow the king a knight's distance away? If queen b6 is played, uh-oh. The black king does not have a legal square, but it is also not check. Do you remember what we call that when that happens? That's right, stalemate. It's a draw. So be sure to avoid that move. In this position, once you get the king into the corner, allow it to continue to dance on these two squares, back and forth, until your white king is able to set up an assisted checkmate. Let's see how that works. After king c2, king a7, king c3, king a8, king c4, king a7, king c5, king a8, king c6, king a7. Now that white's king is close to the queen, can you find an assisted checkmate in this position? That's right, queen to b7, checkmate. The white king assists the queen in delivering the checkmate to the king.
Woohoo!
Now that you've learned how to checkmate with the queen versus king, it's your turn to practice checkmating the king.
Ah, something about things moving. Can white deliver a checkmate immediately, or should white play king g6 to prepare the checkmate? No. Yes. Wee wee. How can you cut off the black king and force it to move to a8 square? Oh, sorry. Huh? What did I do? What am I doing? Hey. Hey. Apparently all of these are wrong. Apparently D7 was correct. Is it almost correct? Apparently I'm not so good at this. White to move, can you find an immediate checkmate? Yeah. No. Apparently I can't find an immediate checkmate. Also, apparently I can.
As you've already learned, checkmate with two rooks is pretty easy, and checkmating with just one queen is simple too, once you know how to do it. Another common checkmate comes from king plus rook versus king. In this position, you don't have the power of the queen, and instead have to use some patience to get the job done. Let's see how to do it. The first thing the rook needs to do is put the king into a box. After rook h4, notice the black king is within this box, and white's goal is to never allow the black king to escape from this box. Black's king gets closer to the rook, and white's rook, unlike the queen, will need help from the king to push the black king into the corner and deliver checkmate. The reason why is the rook cannot move diagonally, so the lone king can sneak up and attack the rook from a diagonal. This means white needs to bring the king closer to the rook and protect it, like this. After king g5, black threatens to win white's rook, and white's king arrives just in time to protect the rook. White begins the slow but effective plan of pushing black's king back into a corner in order to deliver checkmate. After every move, the side with the rook has to ask, can my rook safely shrink the box? If the answer is yes, then move the rook. If the answer is no, then move the king closer to the opponent's king. In this position, can white's rook safely shrink the box? Yes, it can, with rook g4. How about now? Can white shrink the box again? If you said rook f4, you're correct. White shrinks the box once again. After king d5, can white shrink the box? Well, not safely, because after rook e4, the king would just take the rook. Also notice if the rook moves to f5, the king is able to run outside of the box. So remember, when you can't shrink the box, move your king closer to the opponent's king, like this. After king e5, can white shrink the box now? Notice if rook e4 check, the black king is able to move outside of the box. Remember, in a rook and king versus king position, only check the king with the rook when it is checkmate. Otherwise, bring your king closer to the opponent's king. White brings the king closer to the other king, and after king d5, can white shrink the box? You bet. Rook e4. So slowly but surely, white is making progress. After king d6, white cannot shrink the box safely, so white brings the king closer to the opponent's king. After king c6, can white shrink the box? Absolutely. Rook e5. After king d6, black decides to give white some trouble. In this position, I can't shrink the box as white, because if we play rook to d5 check, the king escapes. But also, how do I move the king closer to the opponent's king? I can't. So what do we do here? In this position, we just need to move our king somewhere to protect our rook. And in fact, there's only one square to do it. King e4. After king c6, can white shrink the box now? Absolutely. Rook to d5. And notice, white's making some real progress now. After king c7, white brings the king closer to the opponent's king. And after king c6, white continues to bring the king closer. After king c7, can white shrink the box now? Absolutely. Rook to d6. And after king to b7, white plays king to d7, getting closer to the opponent's king. After king b8, can white shrink the box? Yes, after rook c6. White's getting really close to pushing that king into the corner. After king b7, here we are again. White cannot shrink the box, but we also can't move the king closer to the opponent's king. What to do? When this happens, it's simple. Just protect your rook and make black move. Black moves to b8, and can you shrink the box now with the rook? Absolutely. Rook to c7. And after king to a8, white brings the king closer to the opponent's king. King b8. White moves the king closer again. And now, after king a8, the king is finally in the corner, and white is ready to deliver a checkmate. Can you see which rook move will deliver checkmate?
Yes.
If you found rook to c8, checkmate. Great job. White delivers a checkmate. After learning how to checkmate with the queen and king, and now the rook and king versus king, you may expect the next videos to include checkmate with a king and one other piece. It turns out only the queen and rook can partner with the king by themselves to checkmate a lone king. All other pieces need more support to deliver a checkmate. Now that you've learned how to checkmate a king with a rook and king, it's your turn to practice the king and rook checkmate.
The king is trapped on the black rank. Can you find a winning move for white? Great job, black is checkmated. Black's king is stuck on the A file.
Can you find the move that wins immediately for white?
Black's only legal move on the next turn is king to b8. Right. With white to move, can you find the move to pairs the checkmate after black's moves to b8? We. White wants to force black's king to move to a8 and deliver checkmate the next turn. How can white move the king to a8 and prepare the checkmate? White wants to force the king to f8. Can you deliver the checkmate on the next move? Can you find a rook move that forces the black to move to f8? To f8. The rook move to f8. No, I kinda can't. Like, it's either that or that, I guess, because g5, wasn't it? h5 is correct. Okay. Because he couldn't move anyway. My dude.
In chess, you are constantly capturing pieces and making trades on the chessboard. But how do you know if you should capture or trade? Obviously, the queen is the most valuable piece, but what about the other pieces? Fortunately, there is an easy way to evaluate trades based on a numerical value for the pieces. Let's take a look. Each pawn is worth 1. You can think of this as $1 if it helps. The knights are worth 3, and the bishops are worth 3. So basically, the knights and bishops are the same, though in many positions, bishops are better, and in some positions, knights are better. Rooks are worth 5 points, and queens are worth 9. Well, what about the king? It's worth the whole game. Let's review that. Pawns are worth 1, knights are worth 3, bishops are also worth 3, rooks are worth 5, and the queen is worth 9. Let's take a look at a few positions and decide whether it is a good or bad idea to trade pieces. In this position, does white have any trades? Yes, white could trade a rook for a queen. Is this a good trade? Absolutely. This is a great trade for white. White gave up a 5-point piece, the rook, for a 9-point piece, the queen. White gained 4 points from that trade. In this position, white has the chance to trade a rook for a knight. Is this a good trade?
No.
White gives up a 5-point piece, capturing a 3-point piece. It's not such a good trade. White loses 2 points out of that trade. Let's take a look at one more position. In this position, white can play rook takes d8, trading a rook for a rook. Is this a good trade? An even trade isn't bad. And let's say the bishop recaptures, offering a bishop trade, and another even trade happens, bishop for bishop. After all of these trades, white did not win any material. Both sides traded 1 rook and 1 bishop each. Notice white was up a pawn before all these trades happened, so white's position is still pretty good. But was there a better way white could have handled this position? Let's take a look. When you have a chance to capture or trade pieces, remember to look at all of your options first. Was rook takes d8 white's only option to trade pieces? Look at white's bishop. White could have played bishop takes d8. White trades a bishop worth 3 points for a rook worth 5 points. Remember, it is usually a good idea to capture with your least valuable piece first. Let's say black recaptures with the rook. White now has the chance to trade rooks, 5 points for 5 points. Is this a good trade for white? You might think it's just even, but remember this idea. When you are ahead in material, it's good to trade pieces. When you are behind in material, you should avoid trades and keep the position complicated. Since white is up material, this is a good idea to trade rooks. White now has a much better endgame. White is up a rook for a bishop and has an extra pawn. Now that you've learned the value of the pieces, let's see if you can use these values to decide whether or not to trade pieces.
Nice. With white to move, there are several captures available. Can you find a capture that wins material for white? So we have this, 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 and this going on, as well as this, this, but this is the best. With white to move, can you find a way to win material? So we have white to move, winning material. Wop, 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 wop. Boish. You got it. Trade with the bishop 3 points, but it looks 5 points. White's knight has 4 possible captures. Do any of these moves win material? White to move. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Yes. This wins material. In this position, can black has an annoying knight on d4. Can you find a way to eliminate this knight and gain material? That's not what we want. Though, 2 for 1 is 6. Yeah. So even though we gave up our rook, we took out 2 pieces. It looks like white's losing material by trading rook for black's knight. But white is up in material and captures. White's knight on d4 is in trouble. Should white capture the pawn on b5, or is there a stronger defense for white? What? Should white's capture the pawn on b5? Hold on, where have we b5? Or is there a stronger defense for white? Yes. Yes. Are you going there now?
Yeah.
Do you want me to come? I can come after this. If you want to wait a sec. Is there a stronger defense? No, because I'll lose it. What? Ah, this. It's not in danger. Nothing's in danger. This move does not save the knight. Ah. Very interesting. Funny it took me that many. Very telling. Okay, I'm gonna leave that for a second, and we might come back to it. We're gonna go grab some lunch. Thanks for tuning in. I'm gonna end the stream here and then maybe be back on after some lunch.
And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.